Hello viewers, welcome back. I don't mean to start this off on a bad note, but I have a feeling confession is going to be the high point of this series. It's not that I didn't like Loss, it was pretty much what I was expecting from the next step to the story. And I don't want to say that not a lot happens, because we are introduced to a lot of new plot points, and there are more questions than ever at the end of it. It's just, I didn't feel like there was much substance to this one, in comparison to Confession. Like, I went back and looked at the running times for each movie, and Loss wasn't actually shorter, no more than like 5 minutes anyway, but it felt shorter. I'm just going to dive into the story, and hopefully you'll see what I mean. So the kids are back in the rebooted digital world with their partners who don't remember them, but for everyone but Biyomon and Sora, the reconnecting process seems to be going well. However, they realize pretty quickly that they're unable to get in touch with Himekawa or Nishijima, or anyone from their world, so they're very much back where they started, stranded in a digital world, trying to find a way back home, just with a little more experience this time. The movie actually starts out in the style of an old silent film, showing Himekawa and Nishijima as kids with their own Digimon partners as part of an older team fighting the Dark Masters. As you could probably guess, this doesn't go well for them, and we haven't gotten the whole story yet, but this little segment ends with an ominous voice asking about the ones who were not chosen. So maybe their team was like a test run for our group? The actual chosen ones? However this plays out, I'm really interested to see how this fits into the lore. Anyway, fast forward to present day, and Nishijima has lost track of just about everyone. He can't get in touch with the kids, he can't find Himekawa, who we already know is in the digital world herself, and pretty soon Mako disappears too. One night, he's visited by a mysterious Digimon known as Hackmon. For the record, though I didn't mention him, he was seen slinking around in determination, but I saw the Digimon Emperor as the more important shady figure at the time. He appears now to warn Nishijima about another mysterious being known as King Drazel. Hackmon claims to work for homeostasis and says this King Drazel has taken over Genai and officially turned him into Dark Genai. Nishijima did find an email on Himekawa's computer from Genai about collaborating with King Drazel to harvest Mekumon's power, and we do know from a flashback that apparently she's been trying to set this reboot into action for a long time. The real goal was to resurrect her own partner. King Drazel is trying to use Mekumon to take over the digital world, and Hackmon proposes he and Nishijima work together to stop them. Nishijima also brings up something called the Harmonious Ones. It sounds like they were created from that last battle when they were kids, but to be honest, this one scene is the source of most of the questions I had at the end of this movie. Himekawa and Nishijima's past doesn't get explained at all in Loss. Most of our time is spent with the Digi-Destined, so meanwhile, back in the digital world, it's not long before the kids run into Mekumon and realize something's wrong. Mako's partner kept all her memories, and she runs away from them using a distortion, so I think it's safe to say the reboot didn't even do the one thing it was supposed to, get rid of the infection. But things are pretty slow going in the digital world for a while, watching the kids get reacquainted with their partners. Their first night, Mekumon appears again, this time with Machine Dramon on her heels, and the distortion she creates to escape scatters the kids and the Digimon across the digital world. And there were a few things about this that fell flat for me. It felt a little like a callback to their first encounter with Devimon, which was cool, but felt a little pointless here. Like, the original purpose of splitting them up was for each pair to overcome their differences and realize they were stronger together. By the time they were reunited, they felt more like a real team. They've already overcome that hurdle here, and while we get a few scenes of the various Digimon who were also separated from their rightful partners, going on about how they feel connected to that one person specifically for reasons they can't really explain. Most of it is just a montage of the scattered groups finding their way back to each other, which really dulls the effect of that plot point. Honestly, the only really important thing to come out of them being separated is that Sora and Biyomon end up running into Mako, who made it to the digital world on her own somehow, and she reconnects with Meicoomon, who's still a little unstable, but not totally lost to the infection like she was before. So now the team really is complete, and it's not long at all before they're reunited. The next time Machine Dramon tracks them down, they see Genai controlling him. The Digimon are suddenly, conveniently, all able to digivolve to their strongest forms. The other point that fell a little flat for me. Before they were separated, they couldn't even get their partners to their champion levels, so that problem being Deus Ex Machina'd away was kind of disappointing. I mean, we see a few of them reconnecting, but not really to that extent, where I could justify it. And on top of that, Sora and Biyomon finally come to an understanding and reach her mega form for the first time. Together they fend off the Dark Masters, for now at least, but Genai gets to Mako and Meicoomon anyway, and the infection takes over again. I can tell this is turning into one of the longer reviews, so maybe that undermines my point a little, but plot-wise it really feels like this next step shouldn't have had to take up a whole movie. The pacing of the story in this one just felt a little off. Like they spend so much time wandering and getting reacquainted with the digital world, but then the really important scenes, the fight and Hackmon confronting Nishijima, zipped by before I could process what had just happened. This was another movie where the character development was the bigger takeaway, for me anyway. I'm sure you could tell that this one was Sora's focus story, but there were a lot of subtler points made too. Most of the Digimon have changed, at least a little. Palmon's not nearly as humble as she used to be, and even TK seemed a little hesitant at how eager Patamon was to jump into the battle. Gatomon is a little more relaxed and happier without her Myotismon baggage. These little things have been hinted at, but what I'm really interested to see is how this changes the dynamic of things going forward. Gatomon was always a little wiser than the others, which I always attributed more to her experiences. I know some people theorize that this is because her default form is champion level while the others are all rookies. Palmon's down-to-earth nature always used to balance out Mimi's energy, and I don't see that happening anymore. As of right now, I think most of the kids haven't had enough time to appreciate yet how much their partners have changed, and I can only hope they make time for that in future movies. The one exception, of course, is Sora and Biyomon, who's changed a little more drastically, refusing to get close to Sora for most of the movie, really not until she sees the other Digimon accepting and fighting alongside their partners. As I'm sure you could guess, this doesn't put Sora in a great mindset throughout most of Loss, but it builds up to what I thought was a really interesting development for this pair. It had already been brought up over the course of the last 3 movies that Sora spends too much time taking care of everyone around her to properly take care of herself, and in the past she's always had Biyomon to pick up the slack and put her first. This Biyomon is a lot tougher. A little tsundere, actually, and doesn't have the patience for that sort of attitude. I guess her lesson is more about tough love, forcing Sora to take care of herself, and they do reach an understanding by the end, but I'm honestly not sure how I feel about Sora's growth throughout this movie. Early on, it seemed like we were on the right track. There's a scene I really liked where Matt and Tai, who have noticed something's wrong, try to cheer her up, but they're so incompetent at it that she snaps at them, finally fed up with always having to be the one to take care of everybody, now that there's no one around to take care of her. It is a little disturbing, actually, that the other characters don't even seem to notice how cold Biyomon's been. Along those lines, this was actually the first movie where I started to really like Mako. She's finally dropped her hesitant, beaten-down attitude and toughened up a little. She's determined to do whatever it takes to fix things with her own partner, and she's the only one to actively try and bridge the gap between Sora and Biyomon. And I'm a little on the fence about how her character arc ends. She and Biyomon seem to come to an understanding, but then she brushes off Matt and Tai when they try to redo their earlier conversation, and it just felt a lot like Sora falling back into her old ways. I guess I can only hope that this concept of putting herself first is just really new to her, and that she'll continue to grow from here. Which leaves us with the continuity section. And I think all the points I have to make, let's just say I hope they get proper explanations, or else we might be looking at some plot holes. The most minor question goes back to the specifics of the reboot. There seem to be some discrepancies between time passing in each world. It sounds like it's been a few weeks in the real world, but I could swear it's only been a day or two in the digital world, which is the opposite of how time passed between the worlds originally, where months passed in the digital world, but Earth time was practically at a standstill. I've got all sorts of questions about the harmonious ones, but it's probably a little early to be seriously speculating about them, considering they've only been mentioned like 2 times. From their name, I'd guess they were yet another force working to keep the balance for homeostasis, which really makes me wonder what Nishijima and Himekawa's team was doing to be struck down by them. And finally is King Drazel and Dark Jedi's logic, which doesn't make any sense right now. Their goal is to stop all interaction between humans and Digimon. He has one line about the harmonious ones choosing the humans over the Digimon, even though they were working together to save their worlds, and he accuses the kids of enslaving their partners, which might just be the most hypocritical thing I've ever heard, considering that in that exact scene, Jedi is in full control of the Dark Masters, who all appear brainwashed. So little was actually explained in this movie that I can't form any real predictions yet. Loss felt a little lackluster after the first 3 movies, but it was a necessary next step. I can only hope things pick back up in coexistence. Thank you for watching.